everybody, Postables, Hallmarky Sleuthers, all of our friends. We are so excited to have Savannah Carlisle with us on Deliver Me a Podcast. Welcome to Deliver Me, Savannah.
Hi, Savannah.
Hi, thanks for having me, ladies.
Yeah, we are so excited. Of course, we had to get in the mood with our backgrounds and the beach,
Love it.
which
I
I
wore my seashell jewelry just for you.
Perfect. I love it.
Yes, yes. So, are you in Florida too? Because I'm in Pensacola.
I am. I'm on Amelia Island, and the beach is just one block out my window that way.
Oh, nice.
Oh, tough life.
I know. Well, this time of year, hurricane season is my least favorite time of year
Okay,
living on an
fair
Same.
enough.
island in
Yes.
Florida.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed, I think we're almost through it.
Yes, yes. Just like a few more weeks, November 1st, I think they say it's supposed to be over. But were you affected by Hurricane Milton at all?
Milton wasn't bad for us at all. It actually kind of skimmed just south of us. So it
Hmm.
was, I didn't notice anything. Helene was a little bit different. That's the worst thing I've ever stayed for. And it certainly wasn't as bad as it was in other places. But
Hmm.
we lost power for, I think it was like 18 hours. The worst part of that was that our smoke alarms are hardwired into our house with battery backup. And so they don't ever beep to tell you the battery needs to be changed because it's mostly just running on power. Well, when the power goes out, they start running on that battery backup. And so, about 4 hours into the power being out, one of them started going off. And it's actually in the room I'm in, which is a big 2-story loft. And it's at the very top of the loft. So, you have to have a ladder to get up there. We do not have a ladder that high. And so, there was nothing we could do about it. We tried everything we could think of to get up there. I tried flipping the circuit breaker off, but because it was the battery running the
Hmm.
beeping. So, we got to listen to that from about 2 o'clock in the morning until about 7 when I finally left the house and was like, I am not coming back until the power comes back. But I know so many horrible things happen to other people that if that's all I had to go through, I know we got really lucky, but it was scary. That's the worst winds I've ever had to sit in the house and listen to. And there was a lot of trees and that kind of stuff down on our island.
Hmm.
But easy stuff to recover from, nothing like other people are dealing with.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you guys fared out okay. We weren't affected over here at all. Actually, it was beautiful weather on the west side. So, but we're glad you are okay and fared well during both
Me
storms.
too.
So, yeah.
Very much. Now, I'm just gonna get this started off because you said that you are on Amelia Island. Is that the inspiration for Heron Isle?
It very much is. There
Okay.
are definitely things in there that are taken from places here. It was fun to make it a fictional town because I got to move some things around. I got to give them sort of a town square in the middle of Main Street, which we don't have, and our Main Street is actually called Center Street. But there is a restaurant that is sort of at the heart of the story. Well, the Little Free Library is kind of the heart of the story, but there's a restaurant that's mentioned a lot in the book called the Waterway Cafe, and it is very much based on a restaurant here called Brett's Waterway Cafe, and the owners are completely different. It is fictionalized to some degree, but I got the idea for sort of one of the problems that the townspeople are facing in this book from a real problem with our restaurant here, which is that it was impacted by hurricanes. Speaking of hurricanes, in 2017, 2018, when Michael
Mhm.
and Irma came through, it affected the supports underneath this restaurant that sits out over the water in our downtown. And there has been a many years long battle over who should fix that because the city owns the building, but the restaurant is the tenant there. And the restaurant is having to move out at the end of their lease next year. And so this was a little bit of my way to get to pay homage to this restaurant that I love that is going to be gone and this piece of our downtown that is going to be gone. So I very much took that kind of inspiration with me into writing this book, but there's a lot of fictionalization happening there too.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, that is so sad to have to say goodbye to such a beautiful landmark and obviously a long-standing landmark.
Yeah, this
But
book
yeah,
was
I wrote at the very end, I said, Heron Isle sounds very peaceful. I think I would like to be there. Is this a place from imagination or based on a real location?
Yeah, so I grew up vacationing here. We came here for a week every summer my entire life, and then I moved here 12 years ago. So I have a lot of memories with friends and family wrapped up here, not only as a resident but from back when I was a tourist. And my dad's been coming here every summer, I think since he was 11. So this is a really special place for my
Mm.
family. And my books that I have two books coming out next year, they are set on a different fictional island called Big Dune Island, but it is also very much based on here. So this island is going to have a lot of iterations in my book. I'm going to take bits and pieces of it for all my fictional islands.
Gotcha, gotcha. I was feeling kind of 30A-ish. I don't know, the cover of the book maybe, which if you can see it, folks that are watching,
Oh
it
yeah,
just
yeah, you're
it
doing great.
felt it felt very, I don't know, very 30A. I think I don't know why, but the iconic post office in 30A, I don't know, it was just giving me that vibe and seaside and stuff. So it's
Here's
good
what's funny
to
about that. So
yeah.
my publisher, the woman in my publisher who was directing the cover designer, she vacations over in Seaside and some of the
Yes.
other Santa Rosa and some of the other
Hmm.
areas over there, and she's the one who picked a lot of the elements for the cover. So I think it's funny that it reminds you of that because I bet that that was her inspiration, even though mine was Amelia Island. I think probably when she was designing the cover, her inspiration was over on that side of the state.
Gotcha. That's Jenny Hale, right?
Yes, who's
Yes,
also an
yes.
author. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we talked to her a year or two ago. Time
about a
flies,
year and a
but
half. Yeah, we talked
yeah.
to her.
Yeah, so that's super super fun. And that also that now makes sense because like when I saw the cover, I immediately went, huh, seaside. So, yeah. I'll have to take a trip over to Amelia Island. I haven't been to that part of the state.
Oh,
So,
tell me if you ever head over here. I love it. It's my little slice of paradise. And now since I moved here, now my parents have, one of them has retired and the other one can work from home. So they've moved here. They live about a mile down the street. My mother-in-law actually lives on the other side of this wall. I'm in a townhouse and she's in the townhouse next door to me.
nice.
I have two different aunts and an uncle and also a cousin who all moved here after I did too. So I moved here and then everybody else kind of followed. And now I don't have to go anywhere for the holidays because we're all here.
You're a trendsetter. That's
Yes,
awesome.
exactly.
Savannah moved there. Let's go.
All right. So speaking of family and background and all that good stuff, we would love to hear just a little bit more about yourself and your writing background. How did you dip into the world of writing? And I know it's a journey because we were talking a little bit about this offline, but yeah, go ahead and share what you want to share about that.
Yeah, so writing's always been a huge part of my life. I've been writing for as long as I remember. I have legal pads in a box somewhere downstairs where I would sit by my grandparents' pool as like a preteen and a teenager over the summer and would, hand write out these parts of books. I don't think I ever finished one, but I would write scenes and chapters of books and ended up, I always wanted to be a lawyer also, and that's sort of more lucrative. And so I went that route first and I was a corporate lawyer. But I tell people, being a corporate lawyer and not being a litigator and being in the courtroom really just meant that I sat at my desk and wrote all day. I wrote bank documents and contracts all day. Not as exciting as writing fiction, but it was still writing. And I think I always gravitated towards things that allowed me to write. I had started blogging the summer before I started law school about sort of applying to law school, and I blogged through law school about the law school experience, but I also started blogging about the business side of sports. I'm a huge sports fan, and I was able to sort of take that into my career. And I continued blogging about legal issues in sports into my career as a corporate attorney. And it's a much longer story than this for a totally different podcast, but that ended up getting me a book deal, actually two book deals kind of right in a row. One to write about the history of collective bargaining in Major League Baseball, for the baseball fans out there, and one to write about the business side of college sports. And the book about college sports and a lot of blogging I had done on that subject ended up getting me a job offer from ESPN to become their sports business reporter. And so I left corporate law and I went to be a sports business reporter, and I have been a sports business reporter ever since. In fact, I still am. And I was telling you ladies before we hit record, my real name is Christy Dosh, and I write all my sports stuff under Christy Dosh. And so I had these nonfiction books and I had a literary agent, and I told her I wanted to start writing fiction. And she said, then you better start thinking about a pen name, because Amazon and the other retailers are not going to understand that you write sports nonfiction that ends up being a largely male audience. And now you're going to write contemporary romance for a mostly female audience. Amazon will just explode. It will have no idea what also bought section to put you in, and it will hurt your career. So I spent months trying to come up with a name, which was also an interesting process, but it's fun to get to name yourself. And Savannah is one of my favorite cities, so I knew I wanted that to be the first name. And then I just had to try out a lot of last names to figure out what could I get the website for, what could I get social media channels for, where I wouldn't get mixed up with other people who that was their real name. And
Right.
so Savannah Carlisle was eventually what we landed on. And it still took me many years after that to get my first book deal. And Jenny, who we mentioned, I was a big fan of her books. I was a reader of hers, and I sort of knew about her plans to start Harpeth Road. And I said, that's where I want to publish. I want to write a book for Harpeth Road. And she turned down, I think, my first one that I sent her, or at least gave me some feedback that it still needed a lot of work. And then years later, I sent her what ended up being the Library of Second Chances. And now I've got more books coming with her next year. And am just loving getting to be creative on this side in a way that I don't get to be in my nonfiction and journalistic writing.
It was really, really amazing watching you put those aspects into Lucy. I'm not going to say too much to spoil anything, but while I was reading this, I was sitting like this and I said, she bugged my brain. She bugged my brain. She and just for Lucy to think so many things. I don't know if you know this, but Kaycee and I are both aspiring writers. We're both working on little projects and things like that. And so when I was reading this, I just kept saying to myself, oh my goodness, this is fabulous stuff for me to be reading right now. So, what is you can either steal it from the book, or what would you say is something that you would tell an aspiring writer? What is something that you would give as a piece of advice or a piece of optimism, however you want to put it? What would you tell them?
I honestly think that the people who end up being successful, there's no secret sauce except they just never gave up. They're not smarter, they don't have better degrees, they're not just naturally better writers. They just kept going. I mean, most of the authors that I meet had lots of things turned down. Now, that's not true for everybody. I think Jenny actually is one of those people who her very first manuscript she got a publisher with, but that's the exception, not the rule. Most people have multiple manuscripts that are in a drawer somewhere that will never see the light of day. And the first fiction manuscript I sent to my agent, who signed me for my nonfiction, and she loved me for my nonfiction. But when I sent her my first fiction manuscript, it was very much based on my own life. And I think a lot of people's first manuscript is like that. Your character, your main character tends to be a lot like you, and mine was. And I was writing it about this relationship I had in college. And I sent it to her, and she said the guy was completely unlikable and that it wasn't believable that this woman would stay with him. And I was like, this is my life. I did like him and I did stay with him, and it kind of broke my heart because she was giving feedback about a very real person to me. So I sort of learned not to do that anymore. That book will never see the light of day. And so my characters since then have been a lot less likely to me. Like Lucy, there are small pieces of like my writing experience that Lucy has with her writing experience. Her personality actually is nothing like mine. And I sort of borrowed, I just put up an Instagram post today that Lucy was inspired by Bree from Chesapeake Shores, which is my favorite Hallmark series. And
Right.
it's not exactly Bree, but some of her personality traits are very much taken from Bree. I'm actually more like Abby if you watch Chesapeake Shores. Like, I'm the oldest child. I am a
Mhm.
type A overachiever. I had this big corporate job. Like, I'm much, much more
Oh
like
yeah.
Abby. But I sort of learned not to like write characters like myself, because then when the editor gives you feedback that they don't like them, you take it really personally.
Yeah. It's like a
That's
personal
cool.
attack on myself.
It is. But just keep going. I mean, I wrote lots of stuff that won't see the light date. And in fact, my second book that's coming out in May of 2025, I'm on my second literary agent. My first literary agent took that out in March of 2020 before the world shut down, about a week before. So it ended up being horrible time to be on submission, even though we didn't know that when we went out on submission. And that book
Mhm.
died. Nobody wanted it, including I showed Jenny a really early version of that book that she didn't want. And then I spent the last couple of years revising it because I loved that book and I was not ready to let it go. I hired a developmental editor. I went back through a lot of it and revised some pretty major plot points.
Mhm.
And then when Jenny signed me for my debut and we got through that process and we started talking about what my next book would be, I said, "You remember that book I showed you a few years ago that you didn't like? I've totally reworked it. Can I show it to you again?" And she let me show it to her again, and it's going to be my second book. And so, like, I just didn't give up on that book. I knew that that book had what it took. I just needed somebody to give it a second chance. And unfortunately, after you go out on submission, publishing houses don't want to see it again. So I
Mhm.
was kind of burned in terms of another agent being able to take it out. But thankfully, Jenny looked at it, and now it will be my second book. So you have to keep going. You never know when it's going to work out.
Yeah. That's really exciting for
Wise
sure.
words to live by.
Yeah. Uh, I have a question about your writing process because you have to switch gears from nonfiction to fiction, from the
Oof.
sports world to the rom-com world. How do you manage that? Because I'm over here like, wow, my brain. I mean, I write for work. I do corporate communications, and so like it is a switch whenever I have to go dive into like even like the podcast stuff or fictional or fun. I have to switch that academic brain off, and that corporate brain off to actually go into the creative space. So how do you manage that?
Think it gets better with practice, because in the beginning, I would tell my husband, like, I'm either writing fiction today or I'm writing nonfiction or journalistic stuff, but I can't do both in the same day. Like, I can't switch gears like that. That's not true for me at all anymore. What I have learned is I'm better at writing nonfiction the first half of my day, but I can do fiction in the afternoons. Whereas in the afternoons, for whatever reason, I have a really hard time digging into some of the like stats and data I have to get into with either I have a nonfiction book coming out next year too. So I'm sort of simultaneously working on two novels for next year and
Oh.
a nonfiction book. So like today, for example, first thing this morning, I did some copy edits because I just like my brain wasn't turned on at all. And quite frankly, copy edits are not like that. They don't take a ton of brain power to go through most of the time. And I went through the easy ones and saved the hard ones for later. So I went through copy edits. Then I had a piece I needed to write and get up on my sports website that was a news kind of driven piece. And then I switched into that. And then I had lunch and I came back and I worked on developmental edits for another novel because I have two books coming out next year. So one is in copy edits right now. One I just got back developmental edits. And so I'm at different stages in the process with those. But also, I'm having to write for Forbes for my own site. And I have a nonfiction book coming out next year that's mostly written at this point. But I've learned how to switch gears, and I have to do it in time blocks though. Like I would say I usually break my day into like 2 hour time blocks, and I can switch back and forth between projects within those blocks. But honestly, that took a lot of practice. I could not
Mhm.
do it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Time blocking is really smart. Because I know for me, I'm like, oh, email, ping. Oh, I have to write this thing, ping. And I'm just like bouncing all over the place. And I'm thinking, oh, like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment. Oh, I gotta go pick up a kid. So time blocking is really smart. I actually started doing that because I'm like, where is the time going in my day? And so being able to kind of like look at it in chunks and go, okay, has been helpful. So That's really smart, especially with the variety of writing you have to do. Because I know for me, it's exhausting.
Not everybody can do this. I largely work for myself. Like I
Yeah.
write for Forbes, but I'm freelance for them. I largely work for myself, and that gives me the flexibility to do this. But what I found takes me the most out of my writing is having to get on a phone call with somebody. And so I had gotten to where I was limiting my calls to 2 days a week. Pretty much gotten it down to 1 day a week now. So I will try to just schedule all the calls I need to have in 1 day or 2 days at the most, because that's what takes me out of it. Because I'll be writing and I'll look at the clock and I've got like 15 minutes to the call and I think about what I have to write. There's no way I'm going to get it done in that 15 minutes. And so I just stop, and that 15 minutes is sort of like lost. Then I do the call, say that's, 45 minutes or an hour long. And then it takes me like another 15 minutes to like gear my brain back to what I was writing before the call. Like I read this book one time and years ago, and I wish I could remember what it was, but it talked about time leakage in your day. And for me, the
Mm.
most time leakage is phone calls. And so I have tried the best I can to eliminate those from my schedule. And that has given me so much more time for writing and editing and made me more productive in those spaces. But I know not everybody can do that. And there's some weeks that I can't do it either, honestly. Like my day job gets in the way and there are too many calls I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Wow. That's some really smart work and good advice. We're getting a lot of good nuggets here.
Yeah, for sure. For
Okay,
sure.
so I have a quick question about characterization. When when you started talking about Lucy's dad, I just something felt very personal about Lucy's dad, and I began to have this real urge to ask you, is Lucy's dad at all based on your dad? Because there were very, very specific traits, not just, the fact that he likes baseball. And now that I see that you're a sports writer and business reporter as well, okay, that makes all the sense in the world. But there were some really specific things about Lucy's dad that I just said, wow, either she is top notch at creating characters or she took this from somebody.
There are parts of my dad in Lucy's dad for sure. The fact that he's a Braves fan, I think, this is like 3 books ago. So I'm trying to remember all the things I said about her dad. I think I
Right.
remember talking about like her climbing up in the recliner to watch games with him as a kid. I did
Yep.
that. Now in the book, and this is not a spoiler, but in the book, Lucy's mom left when she was a kid and isn't around anymore. That is not the case in my life. My mom worked at night my whole life. So my mom wasn't there at night. It was me and my dad. And I have a younger brother, but he's 9 years younger than me. I made Lucy an only child, but my brother's 9 years younger. And so we sort of had our childhoods at separate times. And I did have my dad to myself for a really long time. And some of my best memories from childhood are watching the Braves with my dad at night. And now that he lives a mile down the road, I still go watch the Braves with my dad at night. Unfortunately, our season is over at this point, but looking forward to spring training and next season. So those traits were definitely taken from him. But I don't even remember what else I wrote about the dad, but I do think that a lot of that dad was taken from my real dad. Yeah.
And then who is Logan based on? Because I started making a list. You can't see it, but it says Logan. And I started listing all of the physical characteristics that started getting named in the book. And first is green eyes in all caps and underlined. Because
Okay. So
those kept popping up.
Logan started for, I always think about like the Hallmark actors and actresses I would want to play the characters in my book. I'm a writer who I see it as like a movie in my head and I am just typing what I'm seeing. And I've heard other writers say that. Yeah. I don't think that's unique. I think a lot of writers have that happen. So I cast in my mind who's playing the main characters like from the jump as soon as I start writing the book. And I knew that Logan needed to sort of be there on sort of the development side. I didn't want him to be a developer, but I wanted him to sort of be on that side of this problem they have in town. And I thought about Warren from Cedar Cove, who Brennan Elliott played. And I was like, okay, him, but give him some redeeming qualities. I think that was his name was Warren. He had no redeeming qualities in Cedar Cove. He was terrible. But
I
I
remember.
to be likable. We needed to want Lucy to be with Logan at some point. So I sort of it was always Brennan Elliott in my mind. And I sort of started from that developer character that he played in Cedar Cove and then started peppering in some better backstory and some better traits for him to make him a little more likable. So that's very much where he came from.
All right.
Oh,
Brennan
okay. So we
Elliott.
have Brendan Elliott and Amelia Ullerup. So,
And
yeah,
that is who I, in my mind, cast to play Lucy and Logan. Yeah. And
okay.
look, if Hallmark wants to make this into a movie, I can go along with whoever they want. My dad really wants Andrew Walker for Logan, not
Our
Brennan.
friend,
Yeah.
We're we are
truly.
good friends with Andrew. We
Oh,
actually have we have an interview with him in a few days.
oh, well, let
But
him
yeah.
know. I'm open to him playing Logan. I can get
Okay,
on board for
got it.
that.
Listen, if anybody can work their magic here, it's Kami. Like Kami and Andrew Walker are like besties. They did a duet at Rama Drama in
Oh my gosh.
2022, and
I love
it's on our
it.
Instagram. You can find it and all that stuff.
So
He's the gem of Hallmark,
He
here's
honestly.
the
is.
funny thing about Andrew Walker as Logan is that as I was writing this, it also is kind of based on some tropes and some things from You've Got Mail. And there are two Hallmark movies that I think are really You've Got Mail-esque. And it's My Secret Valentine and Love in a Bottle, Something in a Bottle. They both have
Yes.
Andrew Walker. He
Oh,
plays
Yep.
the guy
yes.
in both of them. It's Bethany Joy Lenz in
Yep.
the
You're right.
bottle
It's
one.
love in a bottle.
Love in
You
a
are
bottle. Yeah.
correct.
Okay. And then My Secret Valentine is Lacey Chabert. They're
Yep.
leaving notes back and forth on a chalkboard. Those are both, in my mind, kind of the same sort of storyline as this. And so when my dad said, I think it should be Andrew Walker, I was like, well, he already played the male character in both of the other versions of this on Hallmark. So sure, Andrew Walker works for me.
The chiseled jaw, that the chiseled
Yes.
jaw description definitely fits Andrew.
Yeah.
And Amelia doesn't do very many movies. I haven't seen her
Not
in
as
much
much
since Chesapeake
anymore.
Shores. So,
Yeah.
but she's still my pick. If they were like Dreamcast, pick it, she would be my pick for Lucy.
Hmm.
Well, and they are always trying to pick couples that have not been paired up. And
Right.
Hmm.
I do not know of an Andrew Walker and Amelia Ullerup
No,
pairing.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
don't
of a
think so.
film that has that pairing.
Yeah.
So
No, me
that's
neither.
right
Yeah.
up the alley.
All right, Hallmark, are
Yeah.
you listening?
We'll tag Lisa Hamilton Dally on here.
There we go.
We've got a pitch. You don't have to credit me or Cami or Savannah here, but we can do that. Awesome. So we have some fun rapid fire questions we wanted to ask you. We usually ask our author friends all these questions. So yeah. Cami, do you have the list pulled up? Are you
I
ready for me
do.
to go? Okay, so we'll just bounce back and forth. So I think you kind of answered this first one, but are you a pantser or a plotter?
I'm a plotter, and with every book, I become a more detailed plotter than I was with the book before.
Oh, so you're sinking even further.
I am. I'm getting ready to do a novella, which I find challenging because I'm an overwriter. So trying to do a novella and write
Mm,
a full story in a shorter amount, I had to sit down and map out like the beats and then break it into chapters and break that into scenes. Otherwise, I know it's going to end up being 70,000 words. And so I actually did that yesterday, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done because I just can't do it in that confined space. But so I had to plan everything out so that I can't get off course.
Okay, fair enough. What is your go-to writing snack?
Oh, that's a really good one. I'm really into popsicles like a 5-year-old child right now. I'm eating these no sugar added like strawberry popsicles, and I have had one like every day while I've been editing the last few days.
hmm.
That sounds
Nice.
good.
Yeah,
I mean, it fits the island atmosphere, right?
for
Yeah.
sure, for
Walk
sure.
down the beach with a strawberry popsicle?
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, best time to write.
Like I said before, it depends on if I'm writing fiction or nonfiction. I've sort
Mhm.
of decided I write better nonfiction in the morning. I write better fiction in the afternoon. I do not write anything well at night.
Good to know.
No nighttime. Check.
No.
For you, what is the most difficult part of your writing process?
Oh, I love writing a first draft. I don't mind the first draft at all. It's probably the developmental edits because you send it in thinking, I nailed it this time. And each book, you're like more confident than the one before that, like, okay, now I figured it out. And then you get the developmental edits back. And the ones I just got was like, hey, this character, who by the way is in a lot of scenes of this book, we need to just write him out completely. So I'm going to have to take a character completely out of my book, which I've never had to do before. So that'll be interesting.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. What's the best way to combat writer's block?
Just changing your scenery. Like I largely work from home. I will move around my house and sit at my kitchen table, or like I'm right now at my main desk in my loft. I have another desk down in the basement. I have a lap desk for my bed. If I just move and I have different scenery, that usually breaks me out of it.
Nice.
Okay, very smart. Favorite childhood book?
Oh, it's Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. The Book It program did something with me a few years ago in my sports reporter world, and they wanted my favorite book, and they hunted for it. And it turns out it was never actually a book. I think it was just a story inside of an anthology for Winnie the Pooh. So I still use that as my answer, but they, I think, have decided it was never actually a book of its own.
Oh, oh.
So, what's pick number two?
That's a good question. I loved so many books as a kid, but I was really into the Babysitter Club books for a very long time.
Okay.
Okay. Was it because the main character was Christy?
That was a little bit of it. What's funny is I married an identical twin. So
Oh,
there
that's funny.
Yes.
you go.
Nice, nice. What are you currently reading?
Oh, I'm currently beta reading for a friend who's trying to get her debut publishing deal. She read my book that came out. She also beta read my next book that's coming out, and she asked me to take a look at hers. And it is really, really good. And so I'm hoping somebody's going to pick that up, and then you guys will get to read it too.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So fun.
Okay, I know the backgrounds don't say so, but we are entering the Hallmark Christmas movie season. Okay, this is a hard one. What is the best Hallmark Christmas movie for you that you have seen so far? Not this year, but your favorite all around.
Really easy for me, and I think I'm the only person who loves it. But there was one called The Mistletoe Inn that is my favorite. They hardly ever replay it. It is on YouTube, so it can still be
Oh,
found out there, but there must be some sort of issue with the rights because it's not in the Hallmark app. They rarely ever show it during the Christmas season. But it was about a writer who went to a writing conference at a hotel. And I think I love stories about writers. And it had, I'm trying to remember her name. She's got red hair.
Yes,
Um,
Alicia Witt.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Alicia Witt.
Yes, Alicia Witt. Thank you. I
Yes,
like could
I
not think of her
loved
name.
that movie. I loved that movie.
I say it to people all the time, and they have no idea what movie I'm even talking about. And I feel like it must not be that popular because Hallmark makes no effort to re-show it. But like I said,
huh.
it is on YouTube, and so I'll go and watch it multiple times a year. I love that movie.
Okay, yeah, I just pulled it up on IMDb. It premiered in 2017 and it's
Yep.
Alicia Witt and David Alpay.
Yeah,
Yep.
which I don't
So,
think he's really been in much else. And
yeah.
He
he's
has.
super hot.
He has been in a few others. He's not a regular, but he has been in a few others, and I always like him when he shows up.
Yeah, I love that one. And there's another, I love the writer ones, obviously, because probably my second favorite, I think it's called A Winter Love Story.
With
And
Oh,
Kevin
yes.
McGarry.
it's
And Jen
writers going on a
Lilly.
book tour together. I love
Yep.
that one too.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous one. We are Kevin McGarry fans as well. So
Yes, for sure, for sure. So is that one your favorite non-Christmas movie? Because I think that one's winter.
that
Yeah, I
is
think it was
winter.
just generally winter. Yeah, so that could be my favorite non-Christmas.
Okay. Do you have any other favorite Hallmark movies that you like just love?
Well, the two I mentioned before, I've now watched many, many times, Bottled with Love and My Secret Valentine, because
Mhm.
I love the sort of you've got mail secret pen pal sort of trope.
Yeah.
So I have watched both of those an inordinate number of times now. I absolutely love them. I'm trying to think of other ones I watched. And I'm so bad with the names, and some of them are also close. There was one with Mark Blucas and Her name just flew right on me. I think it was called A Season for Love. It was a summer one that she came back home to help with her parents'
Autumn
like
Reeser.
barbecue. Autumn Reeser, thank you. I could picture her and could not think of the name right now. I love that one. I love Mark Blucas, and in fact, he's my guy I've cast for the book that comes out next May. So I haven't seen him in
Oh,
Ooh.
anything in a while, and I love him.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one specifically because
Mhm.
it takes place in Texas, and
Yes.
I am a Texan. So, yeah, I don't think it was filmed in Texas, but they did okay.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
I love when they say it's filmed in like in Florida or Georgia, which I'm very familiar with the coastline, and then they pan out over the ocean and there's like a mountain or some sort of like big island in the distance. I'm like, yeah, we don't have that. That's not
Right.
here.
That was the big joke with the recapping Chesapeake Shores is, oh, the mountains in Maryland. Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So fun. Well,
Oh, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much,
yes.
Savannah.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love being around other people who love Hallmark because that's another one of those things. My dad and I would sit together and watch, and I still go over to his house and it's like, what's on
Mhm.
the DVR? What have you watched this season? What haven't you watched that we can watch together? So absolutely love Hallmark and love meeting other people who do too.
Yes. Yes. It was
Well,
such a
come and chat
joy.
with us anytime.
Yes, for sure. Such a joy meeting you. Where can people find you on social media and where can people find your book?
So on social media, I'm Savvy Carlisle with two V's because Savannah didn't fit on one of them, and I wanted them all to be the same. So it's Savvy Carlisle on Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it is now, Instagram, TikTok, all of them. And my book is pretty much available everywhere that books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the sort of usual suspects. It's in Kindle Unlimited for people who have Kindle Unlimited, which I think is really exciting because I meet so many readers online who are just voracious readers and they love KU and they're so excited when they find out the book is in KU. And I'm a KU person too, so I love it.
Yes. Awesome. Well, make sure you get your book, your copy of The Library of Second Chances. Look how beautiful it is. And
And
by
when
the
the
way,
character of Logan is introduced, make sure you're sitting down.
I also have to just add, I love the pink and the blue, and it's just so chef's kiss. Like
Uh,
the
our
covers,
cover
amazing.
designer is incredible. Every cover she does for all the other authors
Mhm.
at our publishing house, I love all of them as much as I love my cover. And I've seen kind of bits and pieces of my next cover, and I'm so excited to see the final product because it's going to have kind of the same color scheme, but it's going to be different. It's going to be really cool.
So
Even
fun.
my 10-year-old daughter was very captivated by the cover. And she said, "What's the book about, Mom?" And so I started telling her, and then I mentioned the name Lucy. And she takes the book out of my hand, flips the cover closed, and said, "Is that Lucy?" I said, "Yes, that's
Oh,
Lucy."
I love it. My
She
13 year
wanted
old
me.
niece
Oh,
My
go
13
ahead.
year old niece read it and she loved it. People always ask me, like, is it age appropriate? I mean, I very much wrote it at a Hallmark level because I wanted like my 13-year-old niece and, my friends' grandmothers to be able to read it. And so I like how it turned out and that I can share it with teenagers who are really into reading.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, my 10-year-old, she asked me to read it aloud to her, so we're
Oh,
sharing a little bit of it, and I think I'm going to show it to my 13-year-old. We'll see what she says.
I love it.
So fun. All righty. Well, it was great chatting and best wishes for your next novel, and we'll definitely have to do this again.
Yes, thanks, ladies.
Thank you. All right, friends. Bye.